Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. Just want to give you a quick update on our podcast studio expansion and also ask for your forgiveness as you will notice some difference in lighting, maybe quality of video, things like that. But we are literally recording in the middle of an expansion. So just going to give you a quick view here. As you can see, we are expanding and hope to be done here in the next few weeks, or at least in a position to get our correct lighting back, get our correct focus back, and things like that. So anyway, y'all enjoy this week's episode and take care.
So if you got some problems and you're not worthy, can you go to church?
Heck yeah.
Not if you don't have a gift. No, I'm just kidding.
You are listening to Saints in the South. All right, everybody, welcome to Season 2, Episode 69. We are Saints in the South, representing saints everywhere, and we are your source for gospel growth and good times. Don't forget to hit those subscribe buttons on YouTube and any of the podcast platforms. Be sure and leave us a review and a rating. We greatly appreciate it. And you can do that on our website as well, saintsinthesouth.com. And check us out on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Saints in the South. So this week we are in Doctrine and Covenants, sections 46 through 48. And the title is Seek Ye Earnestly the Best Gifts. Uncle Andrew, what you got?
So here we are in the month of March, 1831. The church is almost 1 year old. And you got old John Murdoch preaching the gospel in Cleveland, just right down the road from Kirtland. And there's an instance where some deceivers are doing some stuff, throwing some books.
Deceiving.
And
Deceiver's going to deceive.
They're going to deceive.
And he deceived. And then he reports it back to Kirtland. And so therefore Kirtland gets together, some of the leaders, and some believe that unless you're super worthy, you can only go to church when you're worthy. And then some thought, well, no, let's kind of go off what the Book of Mormon said there in 3 Nephi 18 about, no, don't exclude no one. So there was a discussion, and there was some thoughts on both sides that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And then during that same time, John Whitmer gets called as the church historian. Oliver Cowdery was doing a great job, but he was preaching to the Lamanites. And so John Whitmer became the church historian. Wasn't as good as Oliver Cowdery, but he
A factor opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
His gift wasn't as good as Oliver Cowdery.
Yeah. And also during this same time, you had about 200 saints from New York going to Ohio, and Bishop Partridge was wondering, what do we do? Do we buy land? Do we not? Because, we got to go to Zion. They're on the borders of the Lamanites over there in that area. So anyways, that's what, March of 1831, that's where we're at. So
very good. And there was one thing that I wanted to mention.
So
today, for everybody out there, is Heidi's birthday.
Oh,
so we're recording. That's right. That's right.
Happy birthday.
Okay, wow. 41.
41.
Very happy about it.
Very good. Very good.
41.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So Bishop Partridge, he's what'd you say he was wondering?
He was wondering, do we buy up a lot of land here in Kirtland, Ohio, or because we hear about the Zion, this new Zion.
It's a legitimate thought. I would be the same way as okay, is this Zion? If not, then why would we buy all this land? And then we're going to be sort of tied to this, and
So he asked, and then that's Revelation 48
came
because of that. And so, but wow,
I just want to mention again a shout out to Edward Partridge again. That dude's, he's legit. He's one of them that never faltered. He's just as a matter of fact, he was obviously the first bishop of the church. As far as like a presiding bishop is what I think of. Basically is what he was. And he was in charge of pretty much all the temporal affairs of the church. So he must have been some kind of special for the Lord to say, hey, I need you to take care of everything, basically. Joseph Smith obviously is in charge as far as getting things organized and this and that, but Elder Partridge, or I say Elder, I guess it was Bishop Partridge. He was pretty much in charge of making sure everything got done.
And if we remember, he just didn't jump into the gospel.
No,
he,
right.
He actually took him some time to really get converted. But when he got converted,
very thoughtful, and
Yeah. So with all these new converts and these they're being excited about this New Testament church, right? They're wanting to utilize one of the New Testament principles, so to speak, and that was the gifts of the Spirit. And so we see a lot of that taking place, where they would do
the thing, man.
There's some snake charming going on.
That's right.
Yeah, there was some crazy stuff.
I would not be a part of that. I think the Spirit is manifested differently for me and people who don't want to touch snakes.
Yeah. That's not one I would be, running to join that church.
I'm like, still small voice sounds good.
Yeah.
That's the one I want
That's
to do.
better. That's better.
as time goes on, Elder Marvin Ashton gives to me one of the best talks in 1987 at General Conference about the gifts of
Is
the
that
Spirit.
opinion or fact?
That's fact.
Once again, that's one of the best.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
He's quoted many, here in here in section 46. Section 46 echoes a lot of Paul's epistle to the Corinthian saints and Moroni's last words there in the Book of Mormon. But there's a lot of other gifts, not just gifts of healing and gifts of discernment, but gifts of being a friend, gifts of loving one another, listening, gifts of listening. Anyway, Elder Marvin Ashton, again in General Conference 1987, gives a great talk about all these great gifts that sometimes we're not aware of that many of us have and can share.
And I feel like gifts is such an umbrella statement. I mean, as I was thinking more and more about this, I thought of like personal experiences, things from other people. The gift is not necessarily, the scriptures lay it out. These are the things that it can be, but how that's manifested in you is a myriad of things. And one talk that popped in my mind was Elder Eyring from October 2018, try. And he's actually shared this a couple times. I listened to several Eyring talks this week. He had a bishop come up to him and say, anytime someone in the ward needs service, your wife is already there. How does she do it? And I immediately thought, well, of course, that's her gift. She knows how to, if someone is in need, she goes immediately and knows how to serve them. And I think a lot of us, we want to step up and serve in those moments, but it's not as, not to say easy, but for her, she recognized how the Spirit spoke to her and she acted upon it. And I think the recognition of how the Spirit works for us is so highly individualized, which makes it so great, because how Spirit talks to you is not going to be the same for me.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point with the, and that's the old saying, that's what makes the world go round. Everybody's different talents and different quirks and things like that. But, if everybody had the same gift, then you wouldn't be able to serve each other like we do.
I was just going to say Marvin J. Ashton, he actually mentioned that exactly what you're talking about. He was saying, just because there's a list here, in this section of Doctrine and Covenants does not mean that that's the end all be all list of gifts. He goes on to say there's the gift of asking, the gift of listening, the gift of hearing, and using a still small voice, the gift of being able to weep, the gift of avoiding contention, the gift of being agreeable, the gift of avoiding vain repetition, the gift of seeking that which is righteous, the gift of not passing judgment, the gift of looking to God for guidance, the gift of being a disciple, the gift of caring for others, the gift of being able to ponder, the gift of offering prayer, the gift of bearing a mighty testimony, and the gift of receiving the Holy Ghost. And I was like, pretty much all things. There's a lot of things.
Well,
I think.
And verse 15 of 46, it says the administration and diversities of operations. I know it's talking about administering thing, but I thought of my friend Paula, who is the most gifted organizational person ever. And I truly believe that's her gift of the Spirit, because she allows, whenever she's involved in something at church, it runs smoothly because it's orderly in fashion. And I do not have the gift of organization. I sure wish I did. But being able to recognize that seems like a temporal gift to be organized, but the gospel is an orderly thing. And
absolutely.
She is able to make it so those of us who struggle with organization have better church experiences. So I thought Who would think having a nice organized drawer
Yeah.
was a spiritual gift?
And some of those gifts are easier to see than others, even especially for ourselves. I think sometimes we struggle and think, well, what's my gift? I don't know. But I mean, when you go through that list, like what Marvin J. Ashton was saying, is like, well, okay, maybe. I mean, I could see. I think I wish I could find it now. I read it and I must have not have tagged it in here. But anyway, the Lord gives all of his children at least one gift.
Yeah, verse 12.
Is it verse 12?
Yeah, to some is given one,
Yeah.
and to some is given another, that all may be profited thereby.
Right. So everyone gets a gift.
Yeah.
I mean,
At
And
least
if you
at
don't-
least one.
at least one.
And if you don't know what your gift is, I think we've all had a conversation with someone like, I don't have a gift. I don't know what it is. Ask somebody. Maybe someone sees your gift
They
more
could.
clearly than you do.
Yeah.
And
That's
maybe
the truth.
we need to be reminded of how active the Spirit can be in our lives, but we just consider it something we've always done. But
Yeah.
that's the Spirit.
Yeah, Elder Marvin J. Ashton said that we must remember that each of us is made in the image of God. There are no unimportant persons.
Yeah.
Everyone matters to God and to his fellow men.
Mhm.
So
So that leads me to the question: can you seek after a gift and develop that gift when it comes to spiritual gifts or any gifts of that matter? But if I'm lacking in seeking, I don't know, receiving revelation or exercising compassion upon somebody,
or reading scriptures daily.
right?
I mean, that
yes.
could be a gift. I've noticed that's just like that's some of that temporal. Well, I mean, reading scriptures obviously is spiritual, but it's something you do. It's something physical that you do. It's not receiving revelation is also something you do. But I mean, you know what I'm saying?
It's a temporal act that has
pick-
a spiritual connotation.
There you go. And so I see people that can read scriptures and just remember.
yeah, retain the information.
Retain it like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah,
I'm
some
talking
can-
about go to the verse and the chapter. Remember when Moroni said this to Helaman in chapter so and so verse? I can't even tell you what. I guess it would be Helaman or Alma or somewhere. But anyway, I love that, and I'm like, I wish I could do that. I want to do that. But to answer your question, Jackson, I probably could do that if I would apply myself and really and pray for it. Seek it. When it says seek after it, it means put it to practice. Start working on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to play guitar. Now that's not a gift we're talking about. I'd love to play guitar like Andrew plays guitar. He's more advanced on guitar than I am. And you can chalk it up to say, well, that's just Andrew's gift. He's just good at that. Well, and that may be the case. It might come to him easier, but it doesn't mean that I can't get to that point if I might have to put a lot more work in. But so that's the point. I think if we're seeking, and when I hear the word seek, I hear the word put your feet on the ground and get moving.
Mhm.
That's what I think. And so I think to answer your question, short answer is yes. We can seek after those gifts and develop those. Anything good, praiseworthy, we seek after these things. Article 13. So that's what Paul said.
Well, and also Neil A. Maxwell, God does not begin by asking us about our ability, only our availability. And then if we will prove our dependability, he will increase our capability. So again, like, I'm not going to do anything as well as Andrew. I'm pretty positive. But if I show no, I want to at least have a portion of that, he can grant that portion.
Yeah.
Y'all's gifts are showing up on time.
That is true. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Hey, man.
If you were here near on time, you'd notice that we actually got here maybe a minute or two after. So none of us was. Jackson was here on time.
Yeah,
He does it all the
that's
time.
right. Exactly.
So to go before the gifts, what was the answer to? So if you got some problems and you're not worthy, can you go to church?
Heck yeah.
Not if you don't have a gift. No, I'm kidding.
that was
False information.
Sincere question
No,
there.
I
yeah.
think a lot of people
No, yeah.
believe that even
Right.
today. Like, well, I'm a sinner. I've done
That's
this.
true.
Everybody knows my sin. I'm like, well, guess what? Just because our sin's not written on our forehead doesn't mean they're not present.
And some sins smell more than others. I
Yeah.
remember Elder Nielsen came.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah. Some smell, when someone comes in, you smell that they're all, drunk,
smoking.
Right.
Oh, no, don't let them go in.
Oh yeah, who was that? Who was that?
Elder Nielsen
I remember
a few
that.
years ago, he gave a great
Yes,
general, it was
yes.
priesthood meeting.
Yes, here in
yeah.
the stake. Yeah.
Some
I
sins
remember
smell
that.
more than others, but all is invited, you
Yeah.
know. Anyway, so did they? Or I don't know what's up. Did they let them all in or what?
Eventually, and then
You're talking about at the beginning of the section. So they kind of there was some problem. There was some issues there, like where they thought, okay, if you're not a member of the church, I hate to think that they just get out of here.
Well, they did at first.
Did they just?
Yeah, at first they're like, no, yeah.
They actually shoot them away.
Some did. Some did.
Okay.
And if you do that, then it's more of a club.
Or a cult.
Yeah, cult. Right, exactly.
That's what people think we are anyway. It's like
it was all new.
Yeah, that was
everything was all new to them. You know, they thought you had to be perfect to partake of the sacrament.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I see where they're coming from. I see what's happening there, but you know, the Lord comes in and says, "Hey, you can't do that. You know, you need to welcome all in." And if you really look in the New Testament and read about Jesus Christ, he didn't shun anybody, right? No, he shunned sin, obviously. You know, he didn't just accept sin and things like that from people, but he didn't exclude anyone from wanting to learn and to understand and things. Yeah, absolutely. So here's a question. Let me see if y'all know this answer, because this was a little bit of a thing. I've heard people talk about this, and I've actually seen some leaders, not here where we are now, but in other wards,
less perfect leaders like
myself, you know. And so you have a non-member, for example. Well, no, I'm not gonna use that example. Anyway, you have a non-member, they come to church, right, and the sacrament's passed. Is that person, because he's not a member, supposed to partake of the sacrament?
I think so. Do it.
So this is what he says. This is what President Russell M. Nelson said. He said, because we invite all to come into Christ, friends and neighbors are always welcome, but not expected to take the sacrament. However, it is not forbidden. I've actually seen where a bishop told the Aaronic priesthood, and not, I want to make very clear, this is not where we are now. This is not this area. This is another area, another place. So Bishop Musgrove, not talking about you. Where a bishop told the Aaronic priesthood, hey, don't pass to that person because they're not a member of the church. And in my mind, even back then, I didn't know either. I hadn't read the handbook. This was way earlier, way when I was younger. And I thought, is that right? That would seem kind of offensive to me if I came and visited and they just passed me by. I didn't even offer, you know. So that's the thing, is we do offer it to them. They're not expected to do it though. They're not like, oh, because you're here, you better take this. No, it's their choice, you know, and it's not hurting anything. They're doing it, you know, for what they believe and what they, you know.
That's right. So I would, my thoughts on that are the only difference. If they're there, they're obviously there because they're wanting to
right.
They're interested in the gospel. They're wanting to draw closer to Christ.
Right.
And that's why we partake of the sacrament. We also partake of the sacrament to renew baptismal covenants.
Yeah, right.
So that's really the only thing that they're not participating in is renewing of baptismal covenants.
Right.
But if they come in there with a penitent heart, they've repented of whatever, and they partake in the sacrament, that atonement is being applied to them.
So there's here is so this is what I was going to say, and I'm going to say it.
Okay.
Because we're on the podcast and that's what we do. This has been years ago when Gavin was little. I mean, Gavin was a baby, you know, I say baby, maybe 1 or 2, somewhere in there, baby, I guess now seems like to me. Anyway. So we were sitting on the row and, behind an older guy, which is now passed on, and a great man. Like I've always said, if I die and he's there where I'm at, I'm in good shape. You know what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with this guy. But I remember him telling, because we'd always let Gavin, when he was old enough, he would take a piece of the bread or whatever. And he would get on to us like every Sunday, like he is not supposed to partake of that bread. He has not been baptized. You know, that's what it's about. Renewing your baptismal covenants. And me and my wife were just like, okay, you know, we're just
not going to sit by you anymore.
Yeah, right. You know, and it's like, okay, yeah, right. Okay. You know, but it did get me thinking. I was like, wait, what? Like, is that, you know, it did help me understand more about baptismal covenants, you know, like that is you are renewing that stuff. President Russell M. Nelson, little children as sinless beneficiaries of the Lord's atonement may partake of the sacrament as they prepare for covenants that they will make later in life. It's fine. Let your kid, if they're learning, let them partake of it.
And also, like parenting 101, don't parent someone else's kid.
Yeah, you know, this dude was old. He was in his 80s. This guy was in his 80s. He was just not, you know.
We'll let it slide.
Yeah,
glad I wasn't there.
Hey, totally
glad
forgiven.
it wasn't a fast
totally
day.
forgiving. But yeah, so those little trivial things like that, you have to learn to like, there's nothing wrong here. It's not, we're not all going to hell now because we've let this kid or this non-member take the sacrament. It's not, it's fine. It's okay.
And every sign we have is visitors welcome.
Absolutely.
And how often, and this is one thing I'll throw our membership under the bus. I've visited many other, and I'm not speaking regionally, I'm saying in general.
Right.
I've been to several churches not of our faith. They are so good at coming and talking to people they don't know. And you know what we do? We talk to our friends and go home. And we can do better on that. And I include myself in that, but only a little.
Yeah. But we are very blessed today to have especially in the internet world, how we could just go to these resources. Because you got to think, even back then, sometimes these instructions, like the President Nelson quote that you just pulled up. Back then, I mean, it was just state conference,
exactly,
general conference,
right? And
then whatever your bishop, state president, that was only
you had to search. If it weren't something that was general, like basic, you needed to know. You had to search these little things. I mean, this wasn't something that was like in a ward talk or anything. You didn't talk about little kids partaking the sacrament back then because you didn't really have a lot of information on it, but it's never been different. You know what I mean? Like it's something he just changed 5 years ago and said, let's allow children to partake. A lot of this stuff's common sense stuff. If we understood, the more we understand the gospel and understand Jesus Christ and know him, these things will become, that's a gift also, I think, is we start to understand things a little more clearly and can see, okay, this is okay. This is not bad. Still go to your leaders, make sure, but I know what you're saying.
Well, to go so again, when they were deciding what to do, they just like they did with the Articles of Covenant, I believe, the Constitution, section 20, they went to the Book of Mormon. There, 18 verse 22, 3 Nephi 18 verse 22, it said, and behold, he shall meet together oft, and he shall not forbid any man from coming into you when he shall meet together. So they just went to the source, to the rock, the Book of Mormon.
On these gifts, there's a couple of gifts in here that I had to look up and figure out what they were talking about, because I was like, what is this? So in verse 16, it says, and again, it is given by the Holy Ghost to some to know the diversity of operations. And I thought, that sounds pretty
intense,
rigid. It's like, what is going on there? Is this military? What are we talking about? But I looked it up. It says the Lord appears to be noting that there are different kinds of service within the church, and that one of the spiritual gifts is to recognize the value of each type of service. So the diversity of operations could be the diversity of callings, the diversity of responsibilities that happens in the church. I love what President Oaks said. He says, we do not step down when we are released. He says, and we do not step up when we are called. He said, there's no up or down in the service of the Lord. There's only forward and backward. And that difference depends on how we accept and act upon our releases and our callings. In 1951, President J. Reuben Clark was released from serving as the first counselor in the first presidency and was called instead to serve as the second counselor. Leaders in many other organizations would have seen this change as a demotion. However, rising to speak, President Clark noted, in the service of the Lord, it is not where you serve, but how.
Even recently, President Uchtdorf,
a lot of people
lost their minds.
I know. I was like, are you
not as
kidding?
diverse as we thought.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
well, if that's what you're gonna.
Wow, I know. I remember that too.
I thought that was funny. I'm like, he's still an apostle.
He's demoted.
Yeah.
Well, actually, both in that same situation, President Uchtdorf was released from the first presidency, and President Eyring went from first counselor to second counselor.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was double there, but
and I'm sure neither of them cried in their pillow that night. Do you think?
No, absolutely
Nobody
not.
cared.
I miss all Uchtdorf.
He's still there.
One thing that you were saying, the different gifts, I found a really great quote by Robert D. Hales, February 2002. Of the sacred gifts of the Spirit, one that I believe has impact on each of our lives is the gift of prophecy or revelation. This gift is different from the priesthood office of prophet. The gift of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus. And I really like that, because I think sometimes your gift of prophecy, that's clearly one guy's job.
You're right.
When
Yeah.
we can all have that. We can all have, I think of a time recently, I had a strong prompting about something about 5 years ago. And I just thought, I think that's how this is going to go in my life. I wasn't sure at the time if it was a passing thought or what. And then just a few months ago, my husband was speaking with our bishop, and he reiterated almost word for word the exact same thought I'd had 5 years ago. And I was like, that's so cool that that spirit of prophecy I had has been now confirmed by my local leader.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was a passing thought. So how many times are we not seeing our gifts for what they are? We talk ourselves out of a lot of things because we don't want to be that wacky person saying, the spirit is telling me this now.
Yeah,
because that's not conversational or how it really even operates. But
I love when people do stuff like the Lord told me to, and it's like, speak to the Lord. It's like, wait, that sounds, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It sounds a little intense, but it makes sense.
But it's a common feeling.
Yeah, it makes sense too, that because what does a prophet do? He testifies and he exhorts to repent and things like that. So it's not that far-fetched to believe that's obviously that's a priesthood office to be a prophet, obviously. But what I'm getting to is when it says that's prophecy, when you bear your testimony and stuff, makes sense. Really, I've never thought of it that way. That's actually very cool thing.
Robert D. Hales, he's a slow speaker.
Hail it up.
I don't know that. But he's got a lot of
say that one.
That's a t-shirt for sure.
Hail it up. H-A-L-E. Is that what he's spelled?
Hey, so in this section, it does talk about how some are gifted to give their testimony. I know the gospel's true. Then on the other hand, some are gifted to feel the Holy Ghost as someone is feeling that. So.
Yeah, that's a true thing when you talk about testimony, because I always think when I bear my testimony, I was like, that weren't good enough. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I always feel that way. It's like, wow, that wasn't
what did I
powerful
just
at all.
say up there? Some people be like, I blanked the whole time I was up there, but I know words were coming out.
Then you got those guys that get up there and they bear their testimony. You're just like, you feel like the room's going to catch on fire or something. Like, whoa, that is amazing.
Each paragraph is connected.
Yeah. Good fire. Yeah. But yeah, it's true. It's like, and they don't really say anything much different than what, say, I would say with a testimony, but it's just like when they say it, it's like,
sentence structure was there.
Wow. Yeah. It's like, I'm ready to build a temple. It's like, good grief. Anyway.
Okay. Well, I have so much. I loved this.
Dude, all these gifts and stuff.
My other talk that I listened to by President Eyring. Now I'm going to be nervous. I'm not calling him by the title.
What is he
right now? President Eyring, right. Gifts of the Spirit for Hard Times was a talk at BYU. And I didn't write the year. I'm sorry, I didn't write the year. Anyway, Gifts of the Spirit for Hard Times. He really breaks down, like, this is how you do it, and this is what you need to do to make sure you're doing it properly. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about you can have revelations from the Holy Ghost daily. And 3 things he pointed out: receiving the Holy Ghost requires faith, which we know, but he also says the word plead for influence. It's not just, I have faith because I woke up today, but wake up thinking, I really need you to show me what to do. The pleading, I thought, was a really great word. Second thing he said is be clean. I even thought, because I don't think I go around sinning like big time stuff, but then I think about, was the show I watched how appropriate? Yeah. Because that, even the degrees of appropriateness can affect the spirit in your home.
True.
And the last thing he said, and this one I really thought a lot about, is our motives. When we ask for the Spirit to be in our lives so that we can feel the gifts, what are our motives? And he references Simon in the Bible, and he hears them using the gifts and sees the miracles. He's like, I'll pay you for this. Mm-hmm. We don't do that. But sometimes I think we can emotionally do that. Like, that was cool. I want to be a part of it, but simply because I thought it was cool, not for the benefit of the Spirit in my life. And so he just goes on this. Anyway, if you get a chance, it's like a 35-minute talk. So you're going to have to wash dishes and mop the floor to get that whole thing in. But the last thing I wanted to say on that is, I remember in high school, my dad was the bishop. I got really annoyed at all the phone calls we'd get, because we get people losing their minds about stuff. And I'm like, oh, I wish they'd just stop sinning, which is like the most teenager comment I think I could have made at that time point. But I had no pure motive there. Like, the gift of the Spirit could not work through me, because I just thought, these people are dead weights. They're sinning. And I was totally removed emotionally that I was one of them. I was one of the people who needed that help. My motives were so impure that I saw my dad's bishopric as a burden, right? I thought that if we really clean up our motives, the gifts of the Spirit can work so much more freely in our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's you'd mentioned earlier about, you don't go about, just sinning all day long, but you've got the little stuff that we could clean up that would allow the Spirit to be more present in our lives? You know, to kind of come out, you know, the shows that you're watching and stuff. Because I mean, if you talk about kind of little favorite sins or whatever, you know,
Heidi's greatest hits is what I like to call them. It's me again. We're going to talk about this again.
Heidi's greatest hits.
Yeah. And like TV shows and stuff. Because I mean, I like the, and I don't know how to describe it, but just the
easy.
Tell us your favorite sin, Jack.
The gift of confessing your sins.
That's right, exactly. Just the kind of the gritty. I mean, just, you know, just I don't know how to.
You like to watch people fight?
Well, no. For example, I'll probably cut this out. Like, for example, like Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah.
I mean, that
realism.
was an awesome show.
The realism. It's
Spirit was there, though.
Yeah.
That's
I know what you're saying. I'm probably a little in that boat.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're all in. I wanted to sell drugs afterwards.
It's like, can I do this? I can get away with this and make a good living here.
But like, so watching that show,
don't sell drugs, guys. We're not advocating.
Watching that show doesn't benefit me spiritually, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then, but it was fun to watch.
The question is,
You know-
Jackson,
you know
is
what
it
I'm saying?
hurting you spiritually?
Well, I think that's such a great question,
you know what I'm
because I
saying?
think there's
See me
things that
after
you're
this
like,
meeting.
are purely entertainment value that aren't hurting you. There's things that are, but the Spirit isn't always involved in some of the things we do for. I mean,
Yeah.
jet skiing is amazing. Maybe you can feel the Spirit on a jet ski. You're not sad on a jet ski, but is it really building your testimony? So it's not like a negative or a net positive. But
Jesus walked on water. I jet skied on water. I don't know. You can
Very
correlate
similar.
things.
Very
You
similar.
can correlate things if you need to bring that around.
But I just
There-
is President Iron kicking back watching Breaking Bad on the evenings?
No,
I doubt it.
Right.
No,
I, can't see
I
his
can tell
sweet
you.
face watching that show.
What was the thing that President Nelson said? He said, I think it was his wife that said it. She said something along the lines of, when there's something, she was talking about him, saying that if there's something on TV or something that was inappropriate, said he shuts it off immediately. Like, he has no time. He does not put any, this is a high standard. I mean, I want to get there. I'd love to
That's
be there.
right.
And I can. We got to seek after those things. But that's what he does. I mean, he doesn't put any time in any frivolous. I mean, he was the one that says, if I find myself sitting on the couch, I need to get up and get going where the people are. And it's like, wow, it's like
So I
96 years old or whatever.
So there is beauty in being busy and not being idle.
Right,
When you're
right.
idle, that's when sin sneaks in, and just
It's true.
stay busy. Some of the people I look up to are the ones that's busy,
Moving,
going
yeah.
to them. They're
Mhm.
doing something.
Yeah.
Anxiously engaged.
Anxiously engaged is exactly
Because
right.
resting is important too, and I will
Jeffrey
die
R.
on that hill.
Jeffrey
but-
R. Holland said that. He said, you have to, if there's nothing in the tank, you've got nothing to give.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if he said exactly that, but that's what he got
It
to.
sounds very Holland.
I mean, that's what it, hauling it up. All right.
Got President Monson there.
Yeah, to kind of go off what Heidi was saying earlier, talking to the bishop. I was very touched when it's on our gospel library, The Lord's Errand by President Thomas S. Monson. And at the very end of it, he shares something. He said, the sweetest experience I know in life is to feel a prompting and act upon it, and later find out that it was the fulfillment of someone's prayer or someone's need. And I always want the Lord to know that if he needs an errand run, Tom Monson will run that errand for him. So if we can just
Be ready.
recognize,
Mhm.
here in life, as we're wearing those socks going down those dirt roads, that even makes sense.
If you're tuned into the show, it does.
But if we could just recognize it, just get to that point where we can recognize the Spirit and then act upon it, then later find out that that was an answer to someone's prayer. There's joy and beauty in that. And President Monson, he said that's the sweetest experience that he knows in life.
And can you picture President Monson in a bad mood? You just
Yeah,
can't.
you're right.
But I think
Yeah.
about myself. Sometimes I'm asked to do things and I'm already in a bad mood. I'm like, that can't be the Spirit because I'm already mad about something. I'm rejecting the Spirit because of my bad mood.
Mhm.
And I guess B, I should stop being in a bad mood all the time. But my children don't listen, so they don't need to hear that confession.
Right.
But have you been in a presidency meeting where someone's mad and you can't operate? The spirit cannot operate with a bad mood, bad attitude. And that's 100% on us.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to have the foundation right. The soil's got to be right before the spirit can grow anything. You know,
there's like such a self-discipline that you have to be like, something has made me mad, but that has to be 10 minutes ago. I got to be ready to operate for whatever's next.
That actually made me think of something that I wanted to bring up the week we talked about the law of consecration. You know, they were trying to do something good, but they were doing it on their own. They weren't, the Lord hadn't involved them, or the Lord hadn't given them instruction to do it. Yeah. And that, you know, so we can go and try and be in a presidency meeting, but if we're not including the Lord, if we're not doing it the Lord's way,
it's not going to prosper.
It's not going to do anything. And that was what was going on with the law of consecration.
Some of the best lessons, though, when you try and do it your own way, you're like, why is this terrible? I'm like, because this is Heidi's way and not the Lord's way.
Exactly.
But those are such great moments to have a distinction, like what the Spirit feels like and what it doesn't feel like is often the lesson we need to have. And he won't take those lessons from us. He will let us have those lessons.
I don't know if we're trying to move on from these gifts, but I want to mention verse 17. What is that one talking about? And again, verily I say unto you, to some is given by the Spirit of God the word of wisdom. What is that one? Anybody know?
I think that's being smart.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It says the phrase word of wisdom would eventually be associated with the law of health given to the Lord's church in the last days. That revelation did not come until nearly 2 years later after this. And so in these verses, the Lord refers to knowledge and wisdom as two. I forgot to mention the other one. He mentions knowledge in 18. To another is given the word of knowledge, that all may be taught to be wise and to have knowledge. So he's talking about wisdom and knowledge. That's what he's talking about. And then I thought, well, what's the difference between wisdom and knowledge? I think experience is the difference between wisdom and knowledge. You gain wisdom because you've experienced something. It's knowledge is knowing something. You know, I know that the sun can burn my skin, but when I went to the beach last month, I got some wisdom. I know exactly what it means. You know, I got burnt. You know, it's some experience.
I had an experience yesterday with my son. My oldest son is 16 on the autism spectrum and intellectually delayed. Yeah. We're reading scriptures. He's the guy that makes us read scriptures every day. At the end of scripture reading, he said, you know what? Sometimes I read my scriptures before bed. I've never asked him to do that because I just haven't.
That's awesome.
What he does for our family, I always feel like I'm grateful for what he does. And I said, well, Reagan, why do you, I was floored. I was like, why do you read your scriptures before bed? It just feels like the good thing to do.
That's so cool.
And I was like, I think that's it. He may have his cognitive issues, I'm telling you, but the wisdom of, I know what feels good and what feels right.
Exactly.
He's incorporated that. And I was not part of that.
Yep. That's cool. He gave a great talk the other day.
That's a good, that might be one
right on that microphone.
Oh yeah. I saw.
Have y'all ever seen a scene or something in a movie where everybody goes, the hair and everything goes back? That's when he hit that microphone, everybody went.
He got on it. Yeah.
And I did not know how to flag him down and be like, baby, just take one step back. But no, he was not gonna let up till he was done.
That was good.
So I've got a question about Marcus mentioned Andrew's exceptional guitar playing. If you want to see a good guitar player, check out Andrew
Hester. Guitarman.com.
Anyway, Andrew can play some guitar. So the difference between gifts of the Spirit and a talent, or gifts of the flesh or gifts of the talent, you know what I'm saying? Is there a difference?
Huge. I think there's a huge difference, because I think of my favorite musicians, and none of them do religious music, but they're amazing and talented. And then you hear my sister-in-law, Shayla, was a Broadway performer for a while, and she's wildly talented. And she sang at my grandmother's funeral, and she has this Broadway level talent. But when she invited the Spirit in, it was a different show. It wasn't a show, it was a funeral, but I think that's the huge difference there. And I felt the Spirit listening to secular music before. I don't think that's impossible, but with those forces combined, it's something completely, words don't describe it.
It's the same as a body does not, we can't live without the physical and the spiritual. You know, our bodies are made of two things. But I think of I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Elder, I can't even think of his name right now. But anyway, it's one of the apostles said basically that he was talking about studying, learning things in school. He said, if you will apply yourself and study the scriptures every day, along with your physics or your biology or he said, you will enhance that capacity of learning the other secular things of the world that needs to be learned, whatever it is you're going for. And he said it's the same with doing physical things also. If you're a runner, you'll become a better runner. If you're a baseball player, you become a better baseball player, et cetera. As you enhance and strengthen your spirit, your physical aspects become stronger as well. I'm not saying Hulk out, but what I'm getting to is you become more coordinated. You can become more, it enhances you, your spirit can enhance your physical state.
I'm going to have to remember that as I've have dove into jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're crazy.
So section 47.
Sure, man. I mean, come on.
So Oliver Cowdery was church historian, but was asked to go preach to the Lamanites. And Joseph Smith asked John Whitmer. John Whitmer was kind of like his right-hand man for a little while. And he asked him, and John Whitmer's like, I don't know, man, what's up, but therefore he's like, I gotta have a revelation. I gotta know it's from God, And so Joseph Smith received this revelation in section 47, and John Whitmer accepted the assignment. So that there just tells you, they were friends, but John Whitmer understood at the moment that when God calls, I'll go ahead and do it.
I think there's just a ton in there because he says, I would rather not do it.
Yeah.
How many of us have been like, I would rather not do that? But I think we can ask for confirmation. I think sometimes when we're approached with a calling or whatever, we think we don't have a choice in the matter. I'm like, no, you absolutely can. I think it's a great example of asking for confirmation. My personal experience is not everything is perfectly inspired, but some things are a partially inspired possibility. And I can think of a clear as day situation. We had just moved from Atlanta from South Carolina. My husband was working still in South Carolina 4 to 5 days a week. I was raising 3 kids, and I just found out I was pregnant with my 4th. So I can tell you what, the spirit was not strong with me in this period of my life. I was really, really struggling. The bishop came over to meet us. He immediately extended a calling to me. And as he was extending this calling to me, my children are like practically lighting the house on fire. Just the worst behavior ever. And he says, we want to call you to primary. And I just started crying. And I'm like, no, I do not. I don't think I can do it. I said, if you think that's exactly where I should be, then I will do it because I'll take the calling thing I should be doing. But I said, no, I'm not where I'm new in this ward. I need to be around other adults. I need a break from the constant child rearing I'm doing, especially in this hard time. And he looked at me and said, thank you for saying that, because that was just a calling we were throwing out. We will do something different for you. And you can do that. And I don't think that's saying you're not willing.
No, absolutely.
Bishop Jackson.
Well, I've actually never said to anybody, that's a calling that we're just throwing out. Just to see if you.
No, and he was like, no, the primary said, hey, we saw a lady moving together. You know that happens, right?
Yeah.
Revelation. One thing we have to remember, revelation is continuing during an interview.
And maybe that bishop needed to come. The inspiration was that lady needs to be met. That lady needs to, she's doing this ward. Maybe simply that whole thing was to just get him in my door.
Well, I had go ahead. You go ahead.
So I was just going to say, with the inspiration and revelation and extending a call many, many times, what kind of makes or breaks that is information.
Yes.
He didn't have the information that he needed.
Once he had realized where I was, he was like, oh, heck no, we're not going to do that. You're right. And I've never turned a calling down before, and I didn't want to do it then, but I could not lie to that man and say, hooray, let's do it, when I was feeling like my house, I mean that, like, wasn't physically on fire, but it was figuratively on fire. Right?
It was hot.
Yeah,
it was hot up in there. There was some heat in there.
I spend my free time with somebody else's kids on Sunday.
No, but that's so true. I had a I haven't been a bishop, but as a counselor, I've had a Relief Society president that was recently called come to me, and she had chosen, she turned in names for counselors. And so we discussed as a bishopric those counselors, and we just felt like one of the counselors just didn't, at the time, there was other things going on. There was something else that had already been in store for that. Anyway, wasn't going to work for that counselor. So it was, the bishop had assigned me to go back to her and say, this one won't work. This one's fine, whatever. That's just how it works, but she kind of got a little bit upset. I mean, like not mad. She was just crying because she said, I received, I felt like she was right for this calling. Like that was revelation. And I told her, I felt inspired to tell her, I said, your prompting and your feeling was absolutely right, because she is right for this calling. She is good for this calling. There's nothing wrong with her having this calling. It's just that I hate to tell it. Anyway, it was a stake was involved. Something else happened to the other person that was already happening. And she didn't realize that. So I told her, I said, what you felt was true. You have not received a false witness or a false whatever revelation. I said, it's absolutely true. This person is great for this position. However, the timing isn't right. We're on the Lord's time. And so that's the best way I could explain it to her. But she was like, well, I appreciate you saying that. I've never really thought of that. She said, my prompting can be right, but perhaps, it's just not on the Lord's timetable. Right. Exactly. And I even told her, I said, who knows, she might be your counselor in 5 or 6 years because you'll still be president. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. No, but you know what I mean? And so it's just how it works sometimes,
Yeah.
It's the Lord is allowing us to do things here. I mean, he is a part of everything if we'll allow him to be, obviously, but he's not just going to move us around all the time. He wants us to figure things out and to learn things and to, he wants us to call the shots sometimes. So
Yeah, very good.
that's what happens. But anyway, that's what I got. I sort of gained out of this section, what you're talking about. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, whoa, he kind of was like, telling like Joseph, the prophet. I mean, this is Russell Nelson walks in here right now and says, hey, I need you to do this. And I'm like, do I? But no,
Really don't want to.
Look,
I would rather not do it.
I would rather not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about you go to the Lord, get revelation? If the Lord tells you, come tell me, I'll do it. But that's and it's kind of like you look at that and go, what? That don't sound
It's just
very
all new.
good.
Well, it's all new. It's
Right.
all new.
But the Lord did not come back and say he needs to repent. You need to tell him to not do that again. He needs to listen to every word you say and do it right away. I mean, the Lord didn't come back that way. The Lord just comes back and says, you know what? It is expedient in me that he should do this. So
the Lord does like reassuring.
Absolutely.
Us. He's not against
the Lord
that.
wants us to want to do what he wants us to do. That's a lot of wants. But I thought of this question came to my mind the other day. I would just a general question. Do I go to church because the Lord wants me to go to church, or do I go to church because I want to go to church?
Some Sundays.
Right now it's because the Lord wants me to go to church.
Right.
Because I don't like wearing a mask.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I got you. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm
Right.
getting to? He wants us to want to do what's right.
Right.
He doesn't want us to just do it because he's telling us to.
And sometimes some of those days, some of those Sundays are practice days, so you
Right.
can remember how the Spirit feels
Absolutely.
and things like
Yeah.
that.
And you're not going to feel that way all the time. I
No.
mean, maybe in the millennium we'll get to that point, where we're feeling, Anyway.
We're still very human.
Yes.
Human.
So John Whitmer was set apart as historian in as much as he was faithful. So we come to learn that was 1831. It was 1838. He left the church. So
Not faithful.
He wasn't faithful then.
Wasn't
So
faithful
anyways,
then,
but before this, we only had a little history, but when we know now from Joe Smith papers, there's tons, like 15 volumes just from then to 1838, just things written down. And
these are callings that are still had in the church today. We have ward historians. We have, is there a stake historian?
Yeah, there's a stake.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Stake.
So we still have that. It's very important. Keep a regular history. And the whole point is to remember because we don't remember things very well.
So I haven't done it recently, but I'll go back and pull out some of my journal entries and read that to my children that involve them.
Yeah.
When they were younger and stuff, and sometimes they don't even remember.
I'm not good
stuff,
at
which
that.
It's pretty cool.
That's
to
a
kind of
gift.
see their reaction and everything.
I think keeping a journal is a gift. I really do. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone can keep a journal. But it is, oh man, I struggle.
It's time.
I'll tell you, the world's easiest journal, if you're looking for a method, Instagram. You can just have a private account that you share with no one.
Well, you know what?
Every picture
That's
you
a
take,
good
and then
point.
like a one line.
That's actually
This
a good
activity
point.
was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It was all right.
Well, President Spencer W.
That's a good
Kimball,
point.
he was a great,
And you can,
kept his journal and all that. And he said, because a lot of people think, well, what, my life's boring. You know, well, who cares what I write?
4
now?
loads of laundry today.
Yeah, right,
Oh,
exactly.
Slow down.
But President Spencer W. Kimball said, in that glorious day when our families are together in the eternities, we will already be acquainted, because your children, your grandchildren, if you keep your journal, they'll read it. And I mean, they'll learn. And
you say that, but I would love to read something like an old journal of my great grandmother or something saying that she's done laundry, and I'll be like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool."
And probably the hard way.
Yeah,
not
probably
how
the hard
I-
way.
not me just
That's
slamming
interesting.
doors and being mad.
yeah,
exactly.
but you already be acquainted. You already know the person.
So we're talking about a church history person on the scope of the general history of the church as this calling, but we shouldn't forget that I think our own personal histories are important. I think of other prophets that kept their own journals that became, Heber J. Grant, Spencer W. Kimball. There's a lot of people that kept it wasn't for the church, it was for them, but yet those things turned into
Wilford Woodruff,
things that are just treasures of knowledge for us, So it's pretty good stuff. But yeah, try to keep a journal. I did very well on my mission. 2 years I did everyday journal, so I can do it. I just got to do it. Seek after it. I got to seek.
So 48. What's up, Bishop Partridge? Just kind of wondering where do we buy some land or what? Or
right.
That's another tough situation about, giving land, to, so I've got 6 acres out here, and saints need some land. I'm asked to give it up and give it to them and let them move in and stuff.
Can I just say that I think when I think of leadership in the church, I've always looked at the presiding bishop as that's got to be one of the toughest callings. I mean, you look here, I'm not going to compare a bishop to a prophet. I mean, the presiding bishop to the president of the church, obviously two things, but I've always looked at what the presiding bishopric has to do. They're over all the money, like how to locate and transfer, and this needs to be built or this needs to be allocated. I mean, that's a job. I mean, you know what I mean? That's like a business job. I mean, that's huge. And I've always thought of that. And here's Elder Partridge or Bishop Partridge. I keep saying Elder Partridge. I guess he was, whatever. Anyway, Bishop Partridge back then, trying to deal with that with no technology, no real sense of, let's just be honest, there wasn't a lot of information going
instruction.
On. Right. And it's like this guy was having to make some decisions.
They're poor. Like, they don't like to sink money in things.
No money.
Like,
they have nothing.
We're not going to get this back. Right.
So the Lord does come up with a solution, obviously, in verse 2. And as much as you have lands, you shall impart to the eastern brethren. In other words, he basically wants people to share their lands,
right?
Divide them up, and it's a consecration, law of consecration type thing. That's what's happening here.
Yeah, they command to save for righteous purposes. I
mean, we can't save like to buy a boat or a new 4-wheeler.
I don't have a boat, Jackson.
Like
tell us about that.
Yeah, right. And Andrew.
Andrew too.
Yeah,
we're the boat-free corner.
Boat, yeah, I mean,
never had it. Never really been in one. But what's your purpose?
I'm not against boats.
Actually, we'll just borrow you.
So what's the purpose behind it? There's nothing wrong. If I went and bought me a boat and left my family every day.
Oh yeah. But if you're taking your family with you,
take your family, son. Because I'm not really a big. Honestly, I'm not really a boat person. Kind of foreign to me.
It was weird when I heard that you got one.
Yeah, exactly a yacht. There's like a different level. How much money do you sink in a yacht compared to the boats y'all have?
Right.
Just different level.
Well, Andrew has a yacht. You didn't?
Yeah, so I got a yacht too. So, anyways, like Marcus said, I mean, he was like,
when I heard Andrew had a boat, I was like,
what? But honestly, I mostly did it because my son was really into it, and I said, well, this is a great way for us to bond.
And that makes sense.
Is that a fishing shacket you're wearing currently?
Oh no,
it is. Yeah, it is. He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know.
You've been living the boat life this whole time.
Yeah, pretty much have.
It actually, he doesn't even know that.
I mean, we live in a swamp. What's up?
I know, right?
But my whole motive.
Humidity today.
Yes.
My whole motive was, okay, this is a way for us to hang out. Because I mean, how cool would it be to know that my son wanted to be the second guitarist and we do dueling guitars? I mean, that would be cool, but that's not the reality of what's going
Yeah,
on.
he's got
He's
his
not
own-
really into that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong
And
with
why
that.
not? Yeah, you make it.
So,
It does hurt a little bit, doesn't it?
yeah, I mean, I want to kind of do Leader Skinner part 2 down here.
Yeah,
But you know
yeah.
what? Lydia, she's still very young and
Yeah,
impressionable.
she is. Yeah, there's always hope.
That's true.
She's all about gymnastics.
He does play drums, but what I'm getting to is I wasn't
Yeah,
really
he
into it,
likes
but I
drums better.
saw I wasn't really into it, but I was like, this is a way to hang out. You
Mhm.
know? So it depends on.
I mean,
That
That
it's
sounds
okay.
like
It's
a fully
okay.
justified
It's
purchase.
okay to
We're
buy a
not gonna
boat.
pick on you
It's okay to buy a
anymore.
boat, Andrew. It's fine. We will forgive you for buying a boat. And also,
We
that-
should
and,
record from a boat.
and don't let it hurt your heart so much that your son looked up to me more than he did you for taking up the drums instead of guitar. Anyway, no. So this happened. The only way that this could happen, that they could have lands and do what they need to do in Ohio, it had to happen in the form of a body, of a group. Individuals couldn't. There wasn't any super uber rich individual that could come in and say, "Hey, I'll take care of it." I mean, it just wasn't happening.
Well, like fast offering in your local ward, that
Right.
can only happen by the group.
You have to have a group, and that's so. Elder D. Todd Christofferson gave a talk about why the church. It was really good conference talk not long ago, and I didn't put any of that down. But anyway, look it up. D. Todd Christofferson, why the church. It says the Savior works through a church, his church. It is to achieve needful things that cannot be accomplished by individuals or smaller groups. One clear example is dealing with poverty. It is true that as individuals and families, we look after the physical needs of others, imparting to one another both temporally and spiritually according to their needs and wants. But together in the church, the ability to care for the poor and the needy is multiplied to meet the broader need, and hope for self-reliance is made a reality for many. So that's what's going on here in section 48. The church had to pull together for a huge undertaking, buying lands and things that's going on. Huge, this wasn't an individual thing. This was huge. There's a lot of people coming in. So they had to pull together and work together, and that's what the church is all about. That's why the Lord needs a church. That's one of the reasons
Yeah,
why.
you're stronger together than you
Absolutely.
than you are individually. And everything.
Oh, I did want to correct something I said wrong last week. Can I
Okay.
do that?
Yes,
Yep.
you can.
Last week,
That's
I
what we do.
butchered the Neil A. Maxwell quote. And this is what he actually said. Let us once and for all establish our residence in Zion, give up the summer cottage in Babylon. That is not what I said at all last week.
Yeah.
The intent, the principle.
We got the
is
principle
right.
across,
Yeah,
but
it bothered me all week.
That's
Yeah.
If I want people to take me seriously,
Yeah,
I mean, if they're
credibility.
gonna
Gotta get it
quote Heidi
right.
Simpson right next to
Heidi
President
Simpson
Nelson.
said, Neely
Exactly.
Maxwell
Yeah.
said.
Exactly.
Very good. Very good. Well, all righty. I guess that'll do it for this week. Episode 69 in the books. Until next time, y'all keep on striving.